Hello, Python coders, and coders in general for this particular video. So, 2023 is coming to an end fairly quickly, couple of days. We are going to be sliding right into 2024. And I thought I'd do a video today talking about some topics about working in companies, being a coder inside a company. Now, this is not a technology specific video. This is just completely in general, and it's based on 23 years of working in big companies, 24, 25 billion dollars a year in sales, and working for some very small consulting companies. And these topics are going to make things hopefully a little bit better for you. I see these topics covered in YouTube videos. Some of the information I agree with, and some of it I really don't. So let's start out by talking about something very important. And it kind of goes hand in hand with something along the lines of company loyalty. And one of the things that I want to make very crystal clear for you, this is the most important thing to take away from this today, is that no one is going to take better care of you than you. If you want this phrased a different way, the only person who's going to take care of you is you. So if you're starting out working for a company and you feel that that company is going to take care of you, you are going to be very sadly mistaken. Okay, what they're going to do is they want the work out of you. They are going to pay you what they feel that you are worth, and if that's the pay you're comfortable with, that's what they're going to pay you. You always have to be looking in the mirror and asking yourself the question, is what I'm doing right now in my best interest? And if that means that you have to change jobs to find something that's going to be better for you, then I would strongly suggest that you do it. About 20 years ago, I was working with a gentleman named Terry, who one day we were having a discussion in our break room about something. I can't even really remember what it was. But what stuck with me was what Terry said to me. He looked at me and he said, "Well, I'm not a job hopper." And I said, "Well, what exactly does that mean?" He says, "Well, I don't like changing jobs." And I looked at the guy because the company that we were working at really was not treating Terry very well. In fact, I personally think they treated him like garbage. I even had a conversation with our supervisor shortly before I left saying, "You guys really beat the crap out of Terry, and I really don't know why." But he was telling me this, Terry was telling me this, with a look on his face that he was really proud about not hopping jobs. And I felt bad for the guy because honestly, he was a good developer. He was a little older. I mean, he was getting more towards retirement age. But why would you want to stay at a job that treats you like crap just because you're not a job hopper? Now, I can understand if you look at somebody's resume and they've only been at a job maybe a couple of weeks and they've got like 6, 7 jobs where they've been there for maybe a month. But that usually doesn't happen. Usually people are going to be at a job for a year, maybe 2 years, and then they'll start looking for something new. Staying at a company for 10 plus years when they're beating the crap out of you is not going to be good for you. You're worth more than that. And you have to look in the mirror and you have to understand your particular worth. So if you feel that you're not being paid enough or appreciated enough even, my advice would be get out there and start looking for another job. Don't worry about being a job hopper. Okay? Get out there, get your resume together, get on the job sites, get out there, start doing some interviewing, and you're going to find something that's going to treat you a lot better. Sitting there and saying, "Well, I'm not a job hopper," is not something to be proud of. Okay? So, and then hand in hand with that is company loyalty. I hear this all the time where people are like, "Well, I want to be loyal to my company." And I said, well, they're getting the work out of you. That's what they want out of you. how loyal are they to you? You know, you can give them all kinds of time. In fact, when I was working at one company, my boss one time sat me down and said, well, you know, and now you got to remember, I'm a salaried position. I am being paid for 40 hours a week. So a normal work week is 40 hours. This doesn't include the after hours project work that comes up from time to time. It didn't include the disaster recovery tests, business continuity tests that we did. That was extra time, and I never really complained about that. But he's sitting there telling me, he said, well, we kind of expect you to work about 45 hours a week. And I was like, well, good luck with that, because you're paying me for 40. I am not giving you 5 hours of time free per week. So you got to remember, you don't want to let them take advantage of you, because if you let them, they will do it. So I could have worked 50 hours a week. I could have worked 45, 50, could have stayed later, but why? I'm not being paid to work 45 or 50 hours a week. I am being paid for 40 hours a week. Now, project work sometimes comes up. I get that, and you have to put in extra time. You have to come in on evenings and weekends to do implementations and major things. I get it. That's not a problem. What I'm talking about is the average work week, and I am going to work 40 hours a week. So if they're telling you things like you need to put in 45, 50 hours a week in your salary, you kind of need to take a step back and wonder what's going on there. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is, what do you believe? As a general rule of thumb, I have a rule in life, and that is, I don't believe anything that anyone tells me. I don't. I look for what they do. I look for my own evidence. So if you tell me it's raining, there's a high probability I might believe you, but I am actually going to look out the window or stick my head outside and see if it actually is raining. I've been accused of being very pessimistic in my working career, and I'm okay with that. I don't care. I call myself a realist. I don't see the glass as half full or half empty. I don't care about any of that stuff. In my experience, I have had to be very careful about what people in management have told me, specifically when it comes to things like performance reviews. Like if you are going to get a raise or not. I've had managers, and I have a doozy of a story for you on this in a couple minutes here, where I've had this manager tell me, well, you know, this is the same guy that wanted me to work 45 hours a week. He'll sit there and he'll tell you, well, you know, if you get these goals and this goal done, well, we can start looking at a raise next year. And I'm like, yeah, right, buddy. I don't believe a word that comes out of your mouth. And the reason I don't is because there have been many, many, many cases where people have had those types of things said to them. They meet those goals, and then they still come up with some sort of excuse not to give you the raise. Or promotions. I've seen that happen too, where someone is promised a promotion. Oh, we can start looking at that. It gets your hopes up. And then they give the promotion to somebody else. Here is a story for you that happened to a friend of mine. A friend of mine was working as a PC tech. He went into my manager, our director, and he said, I want to get ahead. I would really like to start moving into a higher end position, maybe a management position down the road. So my boss, our director, proceeds to tell him what he needs to do to get ahead. I am not sure if the guy was lying, if he was making this up, if he was just trying to get my friend's hopes up. I really don't know what he was thinking here, but he told my friend, okay, you don't have a degree in information technology, which was true. He had quite a few years of experience working as a PC tech, and that's how he got the position he was in. So number one, he had to get at least a bachelor's degree. Okay. The second thing was certifications. He didn't have any certifications, so my boss lined out what he wanted him to have. So my friend took him seriously. Now, if this had been me in this position, I would have been a lot more skeptical of what I was told. But my friend went out there and got a bachelor's degree, and then he also went out, got the certifications, and he also went out and pursued a master's degree. I tried to talk him out of the master's degree. I thought that was a little bit more than was necessary, but he wanted it. It was a goal for himself, so he went out and got it. So now he has fulfilled what our boss has told him to do. Time passes. One of our other PC techs becomes really buddy-buddy with our director. They even went out to Las Vegas for a conference from a software company. We were going to be implementing new help desk, change management software, all that. They go out there, spend a week, come back, and the two are inseparable. It's really creepy how this worked out. So the help desk supervisor position opens up. I wonder who got the position. Yes, the buddy got the position. So my friend is absolutely furious, and I don't blame him. And if you were to look at me and tell me, well, he should have gotten all that in writing, I can tell you this right now. What they put on paper doesn't mean anything. They will find any way to get around what they have written on paper. So, and my friend left the company not soon after this. He was like, I'm not going to work for this other guy who has now become ridiculously buddy-buddy with our manager. And quite frankly, I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to work in that position anymore either. So, again, listen, don't believe anything that you're told. I don't care if they tell it to you. I don't care if they put it on paper. I don't care if they chisel it into 2 stone tablets and hand it to you. It doesn't mean anything. Until it actually happens, don't believe them. Okay? All right. Next point of topic. And this particular one, I have been criticized for years and years on, like 20 years, which is Christmas parties, company picnics, company dinners, company outings, team building exercises, all of that stuff. Here's my advice. Don't go to them. Stay as far away from these things as you possibly can. I have never been to a company Christmas party. I've never been to a company picnic, and believe me, I've had opportunities. I worked for a company that would pay for your hotel room. This is our Christmas parties. They would pay for your hotel room at a casino. All the food and everything was provided for. You'd stay for, I think it was 2 days, something like that. I can't remember if they paid for just 1 night or 2. I never went. I have a very firm conviction that you spend as little time with the people that you work with outside of work as possible. And the reason I do this is because I'm very cautious about what I say to people. I've heard of stories. In fact, I watched a YouTube video a few months ago where a guy was talking about how he was coerced out to a company, not really a company function, but they were just going to go to a bar, maybe have a few beers. One of his colleagues asks him, well, what do you think of this guy? And he told him. And the next day, a couple days later, he's in HR because they said, well, why are you telling stories about this guy? So my advice is, unless you become really close friends with somebody at work, and I highly suggest that you keep that to a minimum, but it happens. If you do become friends with somebody, still limit your interactions with people outside of work. You must be able to build up that trust with people first. Now, that same director used to fight with me all the time about going to company dinners, and I would refuse. I would go home. And he was mad at me all the time. Oh, well, you got to go to these dinners, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't. I am going home. And that is exactly what I did. Used to tick him off to no end. But it's like, listen, I'm not going to sit there and say something and then get myself into a huge amount of trouble. So I steer clear of all of that stuff, and that is exactly what I recommend that you do. Okay, to wrap up our video, I want to tell you a funny story. And I've got, probably a dozen weird and funny stories from working. But at my first full-time job out of college, I had moved to Phoenix. I was working for a fairly large company, and there was a lady there named Dorothy. Dorothy had been a computer operator supervisor for second shift, and when they eliminated that position, they promoted her into an analyst position. That was what they hired me for. Basically, we're systems administrators, but for some reason they called us analysts. I don't know why. I don't really care. But Dorothy was a little different. She was getting up there. I think she was knocking on the door of 60, and she was giving some serious thought to retirement. But what happened here was they gave her a multi-month project. I think she was working on this for about, maybe 3 to 4 months. And it was requiring her to go into the computer room at night. The first few times she was doing this, she was always complaining about something. I never knew Dorothy not to complain about something. And so what she was doing is she was going to our boss, and she was complaining about the state of the computer room every single time she'd have to go in at night. She'd say, it's dirty, these guys are not doing this, they're not doing that, blah, blah, blah. Well, one of the computer operators came to me. The guy's name was Randy. And he said, hey, do you know when she's going to be in the computer room at night? You know, if she's going to come in during second shift. And I said, well, from our daily meetings, I actually do know when she's going to be in. So he said, is there any way that you can alert us that she's going to be coming in that night so we can clean this place up, so she'll stop complaining? So I thought about it for a little bit, and what I did was they had a giant whiteboard in the computer room, and it was kind of right as you walked in, so it hung off of one of the divider walls, like cubicle divider walls. And I said, yes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a picture down in the far left bottom corner. If you see that picture, she's going to be in that particular night. So I'm going to show you this picture now. You should see it on screen. This is called the Dorothy. So every time that she was going to be in the computer room, I would draw this picture down in the corner. Nobody but the computer operators and me knew about this. No one ever caught on. So if they saw that in the corner, they would erase it, and then they would make sure that the computer room was actually clean. So that was kind of our little inside joke. And Randy told me about a month later, he said, thank you. He said, this has made a world of difference. She finally stopped complaining. Okay, so I want to wish everybody a happy 2024. I hope everybody has some opportunity to work on their career goals and further advance their education and their knowledge. I do have a couple of Qt for Python topics that are going to be coming up. I have been fairly busy at the day job, so I haven't had as much time to do videos. But I'm going to get to it, I promise. And other than that, guys, happy coding.